Welcome back to Sampstra Games, the place to find new strategy games, and welcome to my guide on Field of Glory 2 Medieval. Today we're going to talk about evasion and pursuit. In this guide we're going to start off by talking about the basics, like what evasion and pursuit is. Then we're going to talk about why should you care, so I'll tell you in which campaign this is important. Then I'm going to talk to you about the details of evasion and pursuit and what exactly is happening when it comes to the mechanics of the game. And then finally I'm going to give you tricks on how to use evasion and pursuit to improve your gameplay. Alright, so let's start this off with what is evasion. So evasion is a unit's ability to run away when it's being attacked. So let me show you an example. I have this unit here and I'm going to attack the enemy. And if the enemy has a good enough chance to run away, they will run away. So you can see they're evading, they're running away, and they're pursuing. Not every unit is capable of evasion. Units that can evade are light troops, light foot and light horse, and non-lancer cavalry or cavalry. Some lancer cavalry if it's high enough quality. Whether a unit tries to evade is determined by the AI. You cannot control it. The AI will look at the chances of successful evasion and then decide to evade or not. Now, if a unit successfully evades, it's not going to take much damage from me. There still might be some low damage. This is to simulate like if you catch stragglers and things like that, but generally it doesn't take much damage. Now, I've said that the AI will decide if it wants to evade, so what happens if you catch up on a unit that's already evaded? Well, you're going to get a rear attack bonus. So rear attacks do more damage and also make an enemy drop a cohesion test. You can learn more about that in my cohesion test guide, so they're really, really powerful. So that's why the unit might decide to not evade if the odds for them are not as good. Unit can also evade only once per turn, so if I were to do another attack on this unit again, it would not be able to evade from me. Pursuit is just a unit's ability to follow if another unit is evading. Now let's talk about why you should care about pursuit and evasion. So evasion and pursuit is a really interesting thing because depending on which campaign you play or what type of a battle you have, you might not need to care about it at all. You might not even need to know what evasion is. You're going to be able to play like a full playthrough of a campaign without thinking much about it. You might notice it a few times, but it's not going to be a big deal. Or in some campaigns, this is going to be the main thing you have to learn. If you don't know what it does and how it works, you're going to be utterly lost. So let's talk about the campaigns. Where this matters is essentially any campaign we're going to have a lot of light units. For example, the Mongol invasion campaign. In this campaign, it's super important to understand evasion and pursuit because every single unit can evade or pursue except for the trebuchets. So anytime you attack, the enemy will evade and you will pursue and vice versa. So this is really important. You need to know the mechanics. However, if you're playing a campaign that has mostly heavy units, then you don't have to worry about it all. Instead, what you want to look into are things like formation, like for the pikemen and things like that. Okay? Alright, so now let's talk about the details of evasion. So how exactly does this work? So if a unit attacks another unit, it's going to use its remaining movement for evasion. So typically it costs 4 to move one step on open ground for 4 action points. And you can see the action points of a unit down here. So this unit has 16 action points. It's going to use 4 to get to attack this, and then it's going to use the remaining 12 to follow up with the movement. Now this other unit has 16 action points. Now, you might notice if you count this down, this was actually 5 hexes and not 4. As you can see, the unit was standing here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 more, so it's 5. So how come it could move 5 hexes and not 4 if I said it only has 16 action points? Well, that's because anytime an evasion begins, there's a random generator that will give each of these units up to plus or minus 4 action points. So it will kind of randomly decide, and this is to determine like how, I guess, motivated or good the unit is at running away or how motivated the unit is at pursuing. So essentially it can give you up to plus or minus 4 action points to each of these units. And this will somewhat affect how far they can move. Now for pursuit, some units get a special bonus. So for example, the unit Knights, it gets a 4 action points as a bonus. Because of the way the movement works, you're a lot more likely to catch up unit if you're standing right next to it. Because, for example, if I'm standing here, you can see that it's going to cost me 16 action points just to get to it. So I wouldn't be able to follow up if the unit evaded. Now, another really interesting thing with Pursuit is that if a unit gets adjacent to another unit, it might decide to change the attack and follow the other unit. So let me show you an example. I'm going to attack over here. Alright, so as you can see, I was following up the first unit, but then I saw an opportunity to attack a different unit instead, so I attacked that unit. Then that unit ran away, and I followed up to attack the third unit here, which ran away, and now I'm still following up to attack 4 attacks. So essentially got 4 attacks in a single turn. Now, some of the units evaded fully, so they didn't take any damage. Some of them got a low amount of damage from the stragglers and things like that, and the rest of the units ran away. Alright, so now that we've covered the details of evasion, let's talk about my tips on how to utilize evasion in the best possible ways. Alright, so tip number 1, this is the same tip as you'll see in my tips and tricks series, but I'm going to repeat it here because it's a really good one. This is a tip that where you want to utilize pursuit and evasion to get out of a bad situation. So notice this unit here. This unit here of mine is surrounded by enemy units, and I can't move away from here because of zone of control. So if I were to just wait for the next turn, this unit would essentially die because the enemy would lock it up in melee combat and then do a lot of flank attacks and things like that. So because I know that the enemy units will most likely evade, I'm actually going to attack. The unit will evade and I'm going to follow it up, and now you can see that I'm in a much better position because I'm kind of away. Now some of you might say this is not a better position because they can just do a rear attack. They can, because they don't have that many turns in a single turn. So in the following turns we could try to like run away and protect ourselves some more, but we're definitely in a better position than when we were down here. Another tip is using luring with pursuit and evasion to get an enemy into a good position. So one option would be to, for example, have a unit here, the enemy is going to follow it up, I'm going to evade this way, and then the enemy would end up here near my unit, so I could get them in a bad position and then use flank attacks to hurt them up. Similarly, you could use a pursuit in the same situation. For example, in one of my test games, I was in a situation where my trebuchets didn't have any target to shoot at because everybody was engaged in melee or things like that, and I would use pursuit to make the enemies run in this middle area, and then I could use trebuchets to shoot at them. And the third tip that I want to give you is, this is more of a warning. You want to make sure that you have space for evasion. So for example, this setup I have here is pretty bad because if the enemy unit, for example this one, were to attack some of these units in the front, they have nowhere to evade to because I'm standing right behind them and blocking their path. So what I would ideally want to do is I would want to move further away, or simply even just attack to try to get the enemy to run away and get myself away so that now if an enemy attacks me, I will be able to run away. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this guide. If you did, let me know in the comments, and you can click on the right to watch my other guides or my full Mongol invasion playthrough. I'll see you there. Bye bye!